Clara May Bennett's hands were still covered in blood when they came for her. She stood in the doorway of the small cabin, her apron soaked crimson, her auburn hair falling loose from its pins. Behind her, a dead woman lay on the birthing bed. Before her, a mob of 30 townspeople held torches against the July night sky. "Murderer," they chanted. "Hang the murderer." And Clara knew with terrible certainty that no amount of truth would save her now. Stay with me until the end of this story. Subscribe to my channel and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale has traveled across the world. The trouble started 3 days before the mob came on the hottest afternoon Dusty Hollow, Texas had seen in 20 years. Clara was mixing herbs in her small room above the general store when the knock came. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door to find Virgil Dawson standing there, hat in hand, his breath stinking of whiskey even at 2 in the afternoon. "Miss Bennett." He smiled that oily smile she'd come to hate. "Mama sent me. Says you're to come to the house right away. Lily's time has come." Clara's stomach tightened. Lily Dawson was Virgil's wife, barely 19 years old, 8 months pregnant, and terrified of her own husband. Clara had seen the bruises during her last examination, the ones Lily claimed came from falling down the stairs. "I'll get my bag," Clara said. "I'll wait." Virgil's eyes traveled down her body in a way that made her skin crawl. "You know, Miss Bennett, you're wasting yourself here. A woman like you needs a husband, someone to take care of her." Clara met his gaze directly. "I take care of myself just fine, Mr. Dawson." "That ain't natural." He stepped closer. "A woman alone doing man's work. People talk, you know. They say things about you. Let them talk." Clara grabbed her medical bag from the table. "Your wife is in labor, Mr. Dawson. Perhaps we should focus on that." The ride to the Dawson house took 15 minutes, each one feeling like an hour. Virgil's horse kept pace with Clara's, his presence a constant weight at her side. She'd dealt with men like him before. Back in Boston, one of her mother's patients had a husband who cornered Clara in the hallway when she was 17. She'd broken his nose with a bedpan. She wondered if she'd have to break Virgil's too someday. The Dawson house was the largest in Dusty Hollow, a 2-story wooden structure that Harriet Dawson kept immaculate despite the dust that coated everything else in this God-forsaken town. When Clara dismounted, Harriet was already on the porch, her face pinched with worry. "Finally," Harriet snapped. "She's been screaming for an hour. Where were you?" "I came as soon as your son fetched me, Mrs. Dawson." Clara climbed the steps. "How far apart are the pains?" "How should I know? I've never had to deal with such things. That's what we pay you for." Clara bit back the response that wanted to escape. "You pay me $5. Your husband's horse cost $300. But she said nothing, just followed the sound of moaning to the back bedroom. Lily lay on the bed, her face pale and drenched in sweat. Her blonde hair was plastered to her forehead, and her hands gripped the sheets so hard her knuckles had turned white. When she saw Clara, tears spilled down her cheeks. "Thank God," she whispered. "Clara, thank God you're here. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Something's wrong." Clara set her bag down and moved to the bedside. She took Lily's hand, feeling the girl's pulse racing beneath her fingers. "Tell me what you feel." "Pain. Not like you said it would be. It's all in one place here." Lily touched her right side. "And the baby hasn't moved since this morning. Clara, the baby hasn't moved." Clara's blood went cold. She kept her face calm the way her mother had taught her, the way she'd learned through 8 years of attending births. "Never let them see your fear." "Let me examine you, sweetheart. Try to relax." The examination confirmed Clara's worst suspicions. The baby was positioned wrong, turned sideways instead of head down. And worse, much worse, she could feel the cord pulsing in a way that meant it had prolapsed wrapped around the baby's neck. This was bad. This was very, very bad. Clara straightened up. "Mrs. Dawson, I need you to send someone for Doc Miller immediately. And I need hot water, clean sheets, and everyone out of this room except you and me." Harriet's face paled. What's wrong? What is it? The baby is positioned incorrectly. I can try to turn it, but we may need the doctor's assistance. Please, ma'am. Time is critical. Harriet stared at her for a long moment, her thin lips pressed together. Then she turned and left without another word. Clara spent the next 2 hours fighting for 2 lives. She worked with every skill her mother had taught her, every technique she'd learned from Doc Miller, every desperate prayer she'd whispered since she was 16 years old and caught her first baby in a farmhouse kitchen in Massachusetts. She turned the baby slowly, carefully, feeling Lily scream beneath her hands. She tried to ease the cord, to create space for the tiny life trapped inside. But some battles couldn't be won. The baby came out blue and silent. Clara worked on him for 10 minutes, breathing into his tiny mouth, pressing on his chest, refusing to accept what her eyes were telling her. But he was gone. He'd been gone for hours, probably since that morning when Lily noticed he'd stopped moving. And Lily was bleeding. Not the normal bleeding of childbirth, but a hemorrhage, bright red blood pumping out faster than Clara could stop it. She packed the wound, she applied pressure. She did everything she'd been trained to do. But Lily's eyes were already glazing over when she whispered, "My baby. Where's my baby? He's beautiful." Clara lied her hands, slick with blood. "He looks just like you." Lily smiled. It was the last thing she ever did. Doc Miller arrived 20 minutes too late. He took one look at the scene, at Clara's blood-soaked dress, at the 2 bodies on the bed, and his face went gray. "God Almighty," he breathed. "I tried." Clara's voice was hollow. "I did everything. The cord was prolapsed. The baby was breech. She hemorrhaged. I couldn't. I know." Miller put a hand on her shoulder. "I know, Clara. Sometimes we lose them. It's the hardest part of what we do." Behind them, Harriet Dawson appeared in the doorway. For a long moment, she stood frozen, staring at her daughter-in-law's body, at the tiny bundle wrapped in bloody sheets. Then she turned her eyes to Clara. What Clara saw there made her take a step backward. "You!" Harriet's voice was barely a whisper. "You killed her." "Mrs. Dawson, the complications were severe. You killed my grandchild. You killed my son's wife." "Harriet." Doc Miller stepped forward. "These things happen. Miss Bennett did everything possible. Get out." Harriet's voice rose to a scream. "Get out of my house, murderer! You murdered them!" Clara grabbed her bag and ran. The next 3 days were the longest of Clara's life. Word spread through Dusty Hollow like wildfire in dry grass. By the morning after Lily's death, Clara couldn't walk down the street without people crossing to avoid her. Mothers pulled their children close when she passed. The shopkeeper at the general store refused to sell her bread. "We don't serve killers here," he said, and shut the door in her face. Clara retreated to her room and tried to wait out the storm. These things happen sometimes, she told herself. Women died in childbirth. Babies died. It was tragic, but it was life in the West where doctors were scarce and death came easy. People would grieve, and then they would remember that Clara had saved dozens of other babies, delivered dozens of other healthy mothers. They would remember. But they didn't remember. On the second day, Sheriff Wade Collins came to her door. "Miss Bennett." He removed his hat, looking uncomfortable. "I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Mrs. Dawson is pressing charges against you." Clara's heart stopped. "Charges?" "She's claiming you murdered her daughter-in-law. Says you had a grudge against the family on account of..." He cleared his throat. "On account of some personal matter between you and Virgil." "That's insane." Clara's voice shook. "Virgil Dawson propositioned me, and I refused him. That's the extent of our personal matter. And I didn't murder Lily. I tried to save her. Doc Miller was there. He saw..." "Doc Miller left town yesterday morning," Collins said. "Family emergency, apparently. Won't be back for 2 weeks." Clara felt the floor drop out from under her. That's very convenient. I thought so too. Collins shifted his weight. Look, Miss Bennett, I've got no personal beef with you. You delivered my granddaughter last year, and Mary said you were the best she ever had. But Harriet Dawson is powerful in this town. Her husband built half the businesses here before he died. People listened to her. What are you saying, Sheriff? I'm saying you might want to think about leaving Dusty Hollow before this gets any worse. Clara stared at him. You want me to run, to let people believe I'm a murderer? I want you to survive. Collins put his hat back on. I'll do what I can, but my hands are tied. Just be careful, Miss Bennett. He left without looking back. On the third night, the mob came. Clara was preparing for bed when she heard them coming. The sound of boots on dirt, of voices raised in anger, of something that might have been a drumbeat, but was probably just her own heart pounding in her ears. She went to the window and looked down. There were at least 30 of them. Men she'd treated for broken bones, women whose babies she'd delivered, children she'd given candy to after church on Sundays. They all stood in the street below, torches blazing against the dark July sky. And at their head stood Harriet Dawson and her son. Clara Bennett. Harriet's voice cut through the night air. Come out and face justice. Clara's hands were shaking as she descended the stairs. She'd known this was coming somewhere deep in her gut. She'd known since the moment she saw that look in Harriet's eyes. She opened the door and stepped onto the small porch. The mob fell silent. Torchlight flickered across their faces, turning familiar features into something monstrous. Clara saw hatred in eyes that had once looked at her with gratitude. She saw bloodlust where there had been kindness. There she is. Virgil stepped forward, his face twisted with ugly satisfaction. The murderer. The witch who killed my wife and child. I'm not a murderer. Clara's voice came out stronger than she felt. Lily died from complications during childbirth. The baby was breech. The cord was prolapsed. There was nothing anyone could have done. Liar! Harriet shrieked. You hated my family. You refused my son when he tried to make an honest woman of you. And you took your revenge on his innocent wife. That's not true. We found the evidence. Virgil held up a small glass bottle. This was in your room. Poison. You poisoned her, didn't you? Gave her something to make her bleed. Clara stared at the bottle. She'd never seen it before in her life. That's not mine. I don't know what that is. She lies, someone in the crowd shouted. She's a liar and a murderer. String her up. Another voice joined. Hang her. The chant began low at first, then building. Hang her. Hang her. Hang her. Clara backed toward the door, her heart hammering. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She was a healer, a midwife, a woman who had dedicated her life to bringing children safely into the world. And they were going to kill her for it. Please. Her voice cracked. Please listen to me. I didn't do this. I would never. Virgil lunged forward and grabbed her arm. His fingers dug into her flesh, bruising deep. You're coming with us, witch. We're going to give you the trial you deserve. Let me go. Ain't no one coming to save you. Virgil's breath was hot and sour against her face. Doc Miller's gone. The sheriff won't lift a finger, and by morning you'll be swinging from a rope, just like you deserve. Clara struggled, but Virgil was stronger. He started dragging her down the steps toward the crowd, toward the torches, and the rope she could now see one of them holding. This was it. This was how she would die. And then a voice cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. Take your hands off that woman. The mob went silent. Virgil's grip loosened. Every head turned toward the end of the street. A man sat on a massive black horse, barely visible in the torchlight. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in the worn clothes of a working rancher. A rifle rested across his saddle, and his hand was on it ready. Clara had seen him before. Everyone in Dusty Hollow knew Samuel Garrett. He owned Twin Creek Ranch, the largest cattle operation in 3 counties. He employed half the men in this mob. His word was law in these parts, and his temper was legendary. But she'd never spoken to him, never even come close. And yet, here he was. "Mr. Garrett," Virgil's voice wavered slightly. "This ain't your concern. This woman murdered my wife. We're just—" "I said," Sam interrupted, his voice cold as a mountain stream, "take your hands off her." Virgil released Clara's arm like it had burned him. Sam nudged his horse forward, moving slowly through the crowd. People stepped aside automatically, parting like water before a ship's bow. He stopped directly in front of Clara, so close she could see the hard line of his jaw, the ice-blue eyes that seemed to cut right through her. "You all right, ma'am?" Clara swallowed. "I've been better." "I reckon so." He turned his gaze on the crowd. "What exactly do you people think you're doing?" "Justice." Harriet stepped forward, her face contorted with rage. "She killed my daughter-in-law. She killed my grandson. She needs to hang. Based on what evidence? We have witnesses. You have gossip." Sam's voice cracked like a whip. "You have the word of a grieving woman and her drunken son. What you don't have is a trial, a judge, or any proof that this woman did anything wrong." "She refused my son," Harriet screamed. "She's been spreading lies about our family, saying Virgil hurt his wife." "Did he?" The question fell into the silence like a stone into still water. Virgil's face went red. "What the hell is that supposed to mean? It's a simple question." Sam's eyes fixed on Virgil with an intensity that made the younger man take a step back. "Did you hurt your wife?" "I never. That's not, you can't just—" "I've seen the bruises." Clara's voice surprised her. She hadn't meant to speak, but the words came anyway. "Lily told me she fell down the stairs, but I know what a fist mark looks like. I've seen it before." "Liar." Virgil lunged toward her, but Sam's horse shifted, blocking his path. "That's enough." Sam's hand moved to his rifle. "This woman is coming with me. If you want her, you'll have to go through me to get her." Harriet's eyes narrowed. "And why would you involve yourself in this, Mr. Garrett? What is this woman to you?" Sam was quiet for a long moment. His eyes found Clara's, and something passed between them. Understanding maybe, or recognition of something deeper. "She's under my protection," he said finally. "That's all you need to know." "Protection?" Virgil laughed an ugly sound. "What, you sweet on her, this murderer, this witch?" "Watch your mouth, boy." Sam's voice dropped to a dangerous register. "I've killed men for less." The crowd shifted uneasily. Everyone knew Sam Garrett's reputation. He was fair, but he was hard. And when pushed, he pushed back harder than anyone wanted to risk. Virgil's face was purple with rage, but he didn't move. "This ain't over," Harriet said. Her voice was cold, now controlled. "You can't protect her forever. The law will—" "The law," Sam interrupted, "says a person is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Not a mob, not a rope, a court." He looked at Sheriff Collins, who was standing at the edge of the crowd, looking like he wished he was anywhere else. "Ain't that right, Sheriff?" Collins cleared his throat. That's technically true, Mr. Garrett. Then I suggest everyone here go home before they do something they'll regret." Sam's gaze swept over the mob. "And I'll be remembering who was here tonight. Every single one of you." The threat hung in the air like summer lightning. Slowly, reluctantly, the crowd began to disperse. People melted away into the darkness, some looking ashamed, others still burning with resentment. Harriet and Virgil were the last to go, and the look Harriet gave Clara promised that this was far from over. When they were finally alone, Sam dismounted and turned to Clara. "You hurt?" "Just my arm." Clara rubbed where Virgil had grabbed her. "And my pride, I suppose." "Pride heals." He studied her face. "You're the midwife. The one from Boston." "That's me." Clara met his eyes, refusing to look away. "And you're Samuel Garrett, the one who owns half the county." Not quite half. The corner of his mouth twitched. Though I'm working on it. Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. Why did you do that? Do what? Save me. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Why would you put yourself between me and a mob? Sam was quiet for a moment. The torches had burned down now, leaving only moonlight to illuminate his face. In the silver glow, he looked older than his years and infinitely tired. I had a sister once, he said finally. Her name was Molly. She was 17 when a man did something terrible to her, and then told everyone she was the one who did wrong. The whole town believed him. Called her names, spat at her in the street. He paused. She died because of what they did to her. What I couldn't stop them from doing. Clara's breath caught. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just tell me the truth. His eyes bored into hers. Did you kill that woman and her baby? No. Clara's voice didn't waver. I tried to save them. I did everything I could. But the complications were severe. Sometimes we lose them no matter what we do. That's the hardest part of what I do. Sam studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I believe you. Why? Because I've spent 34 years learning to read people, and you don't have a murderer's eyes. He reached out and took her medical bag from her hands. Come with me. Where? Twin Creek Ranch. You can't stay here. They'll come back when the sun rises and I'm gone. Next time I might not be around to stop them. Clara looked at the darkened windows of the buildings around her. Her room above the general store. The clinic where she'd treated patients. The street where she'd walked every day for 2 years, thinking she'd finally found a place to belong. It was all gone now. One accusation, one lie, and everything she'd built had crumbled to dust. I don't know you, she said quietly. You could be worse than they are. I could be. Sam didn't try to convince her. But I'm not, and right now I'm your only option. Clara looked at him, this hard-faced stranger who had appeared out of nowhere to save her life. She didn't trust him. She didn't trust anyone. But he was right. She had no choice. All right, she said. But if you try anything, I should warn you. I once broke a man's nose with a bedpan, and I'm not afraid to do it again. For the first time since she'd met him, Sam Garrett smiled. Ma'am, he said, helping her onto his horse. I do believe we're going to get along just fine. They rode into the darkness together, leaving Dusty Hollow and its mob behind. But Clara knew, even as the cool night air rushed past her face, that this wasn't an ending. It was only the beginning. The ride to Twin Creek Ranch took nearly an hour, and Clara spent every minute of it acutely aware of Sam's arm around her waist, steadying her on the horse. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say. Not yet. Not while the torches still burned in Clara's memory, and the sound of "hang her" echoed in her ears. When they finally stopped, a Mexican woman appeared on the porch, her gray hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes sharp despite the late hour. Rosa, Sam said, dismounting. This is Miss Clara Bennett. She'll be staying with us. Rosa's gaze swept over Clara, taking in the blood still staining her dress, the wild look in her eyes, the trembling she couldn't quite control. Something in the older woman's face softened. Come inside, mija. I'll draw you a bath. Clara allowed herself to be led into the house through rooms she barely registered upstairs. She couldn't feel beneath her feet. The next hour passed in a haze of hot water, and Rosa's gentle hands washing the blood from her hair, her skin, her fingernails. You've had a bad time, Rosa said quietly. But you're safe now. Mr. Sam, he doesn't bring people here unless he means to protect them. Why? Clara's voice came out hoarse. He doesn't know me. Rosa's hands stilled. He knows enough. He knows what it looks like when the world turns against a woman for no good reason. He's seen it before. His sister. Ah. Rosa resumed washing Clara's hair. He told you about Molly. Only that she died because of what people said about her. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Molly was the sweetest girl you ever met. 17 years old, pretty as a spring morning with a laugh that could light up a room. The son of a rich man wanted her, but she refused him. So he took what he wanted anyway, and then told everyone she'd offered herself to him. Clara's stomach turned. God. The whole town believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was rich. She was nobody. They called her terrible things, threw rocks at her in the street. Her own friends turned their backs. Rosa's voice hardened. She found out she was carrying his child. A week later, she hanged herself in the barn. Sam was the one who found her. Clara closed her eyes. The image was too familiar, too close to what had almost happened to her tonight. He was 18 years old, Rosa continued. Just a boy. He couldn't stop what happened to Molly. Didn't have the power, the money, the influence. He swore on her grave that he'd never be powerless again. And he hasn't been. So I'm what? A substitute for his sister. No, mija. Rosa helped Clara out of the bath, wrapping her in a soft towel. You're a chance for him to do what he couldn't do before. To save someone who deserves saving. Clara, dressed in a nightgown Rosa provided, too exhausted to protest. But before the older woman could leave, Clara caught her arm. Mrs. Rosa, the woman I tried to save. Lily Dawson. Her husband used to beat her. I saw the bruises. She was afraid of him. Rosa's expression darkened. I know. Everyone knows. But the Dawsons are powerful. No one speaks against them. If Virgil was hurting her during the pregnancy, it could have caused the complications. The placental abruption, the hemorrhaging. I've seen it before in Boston. Women whose husbands... Clara's voice broke. She might have survived if he hadn't been beating her. Rosa was very still. Can you prove this? Doc Miller examined her a month ago. He would have noted any injuries. But he's gone and his files are at his clinic. If I could just see those records, I might be able to prove that Lily's death wasn't my fault, that it was Virgil's. That's a dangerous game you're talking about. I know. Clara met Rosa's eyes. But I won't spend the rest of my life with people thinking I'm a murderer. I won't let them win. Rosa studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled, a slow, spreading warmth that transformed her face. You've got fire in you, mija. I like that. Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning. But Clara couldn't rest. She lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lily's face. Felt the blood between her fingers. Heard the mob chanting her death. Around 3 a.m, she gave up on sleep entirely. She wrapped herself in a robe Rosa had left and made her way downstairs, hoping to find the kitchen, hoping a cup of tea might settle her thoughts. Instead, she found Sam. He was sitting in the main room, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring into a dying fire. He looked up when she entered, his blue eyes unreadable in the low light. Couldn't sleep either. No. Clara hesitated in the doorway. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. You didn't. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. You probably have questions. Clara sat, tucking her bare feet beneath her. I have about 100 questions, but only one that matters right now. Ask it. What happens next? You've saved me from a mob, but the accusation is still out there. Harriet Dawson isn't going to stop just because you scared her tonight. What's your plan? Sam took a slow sip of his whiskey. My plan is to find the truth. You say you didn't kill that woman. I believe you. But believing isn't enough. We need proof. I was thinking the same thing. Clara leaned forward. Doc Miller examined Lily a month ago. If Virgil was beating her, there would be notes in her medical records, evidence that her injuries weren't caused by falling downstairs. Miller's clinic is in town. Going back there would be suicide for you. Then someone else has to go. Someone they won't suspect. Sam's eyes narrowed. You're asking me to break into a doctor's office and steal medical records. I'm asking you to help me prove I'm innocent. There's a difference. For a long moment they stared at each other across the dying fire. Then Sam set down his glass. "You've got nerve, I'll give you that." "I've got nothing left to lose. That tends to make a person bold. Or reckless. Maybe both." Clara didn't look away. "Mr. Garrett, I've spent my whole life trying to help people. Bringing babies into the world. Easing women through the hardest hours of their lives. I've lost patients before. It happens. But I've never done anything to hurt them. And I won't let Harriet Dawson destroy everything I am, because her son is a monster and she's too proud to admit it." Sam was quiet for a long time. The fire crackled and popped. Outside, an owl called into the darkness. "All right," he said finally. "Tomorrow I'll send one of my men to scout the town. See where things stand. If there's a way to get into Miller's clinic without getting caught, we'll find it. Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Sam stood, and Clara was struck again by how large he was, how solid. "If we're wrong about this, if Virgil wasn't beating his wife, then we've got nothing, and Harriet will come for you with everything she has." "I'm not wrong." Clara rose to face him. "I know what I saw. I know what Lily told me, even if she was too scared to say it outright. Virgil Dawson killed his wife and child just as surely as if he'd put a gun to their heads, and I'm going to prove it." Something flickered in Sam's eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "Get some sleep, Miss Bennett. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "Clara." "What?" "My name is Clara. If we're going to be co-conspirators, you might as well use it." The corner of Sam's mouth twitched. "All right, Clara. Get some sleep." She didn't sleep, but she felt for the first time since the nightmare began something that might have been hope. The next morning, Clara woke to the sound of horses and men's voices. She dressed quickly in a simple dress Rosa had laid out and made her way downstairs, where she found Sam already gone. "He rode out at dawn," Rosa explained, setting a plate of eggs and bacon in front of Clara. "Said he had business in town." Business. The kind he doesn't talk about until it's done. Rosa poured Clara a cup of coffee. "Eat. You'll need your strength." Clara forced herself to eat, though every bite tasted like dust. She kept glancing at the window, half expecting to see the mob from Dusty Hollow riding up the road. Around noon, a rider appeared on the horizon. Clara's heart seized, but Rosa put a calming hand on her shoulder. "That's Nate, Mr. Sam's foreman. He's been with us since the beginning." Nate was a weathered man in his 40s with kind eyes and a cautious way of moving that suggested he'd seen his share of trouble. He removed his hat when he entered the house and nodded to Clara. "Ma'am, Mr. Sam sent me back with news." "What news?" "It ain't good." Nate accepted the cup of coffee Rosa offered him. "Mrs. Dawson's been busy. She's got half the town convinced you're a witch. Says you cursed her grandson in the womb. Some folks are talking about sending to Austin for a federal marshal." Clara's blood went cold. "A federal marshal?" "Murder's a federal offense when it crosses certain lines. Mrs. Dawson's claiming you came to Texas specifically to prey on young mothers. Says you've killed before back in Boston." "That's insane. I've never killed anyone." "I know that, ma'am, but she's got people believing her. And if a marshal comes, it won't matter what the truth is. They'll arrest you first and ask questions later." Clara sank into a chair. A federal marshal. A trial. Prison or worse. The walls she'd thought she was safe behind were suddenly closing in. "There's more," Nate said reluctantly. "Mr. Sam went to Doc Miller's clinic. It's been cleared out. Every file, every record. All gone." Gone where?" "Nobody knows. Place was empty when he got there. Cleaned out overnight, looks like." Clara's mind raced. Harriet. She must have had someone take the files. She knows what's in them. She knows the evidence would point to Virgil. That's what Mr. Sam figured too. He's gone to see a lawyer in Ridgewater, town about 3 hours east. Says he knows someone who might be able to help. "What kind of help?" Nate shifted uncomfortably. Legal kind, I reckon. Mr. Sam didn't say much more than that. Just told me to bring you the news and make sure you stay put. Stay put? Clara laughed bitterly. Like a prisoner. Like someone worth protecting, ma'am. There's a difference. Clara spent the rest of the day in a state of anxious agitation. She paced the halls of the ranch house, unable to settle. Rosa tried to distract her with household tasks, but Clara's hands shook too badly to be useful. By evening, Sam still hadn't returned. He'll be back, Rosa said firmly. Mr. Sam always comes back. But as the sun set and the shadows lengthened, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something had gone wrong. She was sitting on the porch watching the road when she heard a horse approaching. She stood so quickly she nearly tripped, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was Sam, but he wasn't alone. Behind him rode another man, younger, wearing a suit that looked out of place in the dusty Texas landscape. They dismounted together, and Sam's eyes found Clara's immediately. "We need to talk," he said. "Inside." They gathered in the main room. Rosa brought coffee, though Clara's hands were shaking too badly to hold a cup. The stranger introduced himself as James Monroe, an attorney from Ridgewater. "Miss Bennett," Monroe began, "I've reviewed your situation. It's not good, but it's not hopeless. Tell me." "Harriet Dawson has filed formal charges against you with the county sheriff. She's claiming premeditated murder, which means if you're convicted, you'll hang. The good news is she doesn't have any actual evidence. No witnesses to any wrongdoing. No proof that you administered any harmful substance. Just her word and her son's. And the missing medical records." Monroe exchanged a glance with Sam. "That's actually working in your favor. The records were stored at a licensed medical facility. They can't just disappear. Someone took them, and that someone was almost certainly acting on Mrs. Dawson's orders. If we can prove that, it establishes that she's tampering with evidence, which undermines her entire case. How do we prove it? We find the records, or we find whoever took them." Monroe pulled a sheaf of papers from his satchel. "Mr. Garrett has agreed to fund a full investigation. I have contacts in Austin who can apply pressure on the local authorities to conduct a proper inquiry rather than rushing to judgment. In the meantime, you'll stay here under Mr. Garrett's protection." Clara looked at Sam. "You're doing all this for a stranger." "I'm doing it because it's right." Sam's jaw was tight. "And because I've seen what happens when good people get destroyed by lies. I won't watch it happen again." "There's one more thing," Monroe said carefully. "Mrs. Dawson has a weak point. Her son. Virgil. He's a drunk and a braggart. Sooner or later he's going to say something stupid. Men like him always do. We just need to be ready when it happens." Clara felt a spark of hope, small but real. "You really think we can beat this?" "I think we have a chance. But it won't be easy and it won't be quick. Mrs. Dawson has money and influence. She'll fight dirty. You need to be prepared for that." "I've been fighting my whole life," Clara said quietly. "I'm not about to stop now." After Monroe left, promising to return in 3 days with news from Austin, Clara found herself alone with Sam on the porch. The summer night was warm, thick with the scent of grass and the sound of crickets. "Why?" Clara asked finally. "Why what? Why are you spending money risking your reputation all for someone you don't know, and don't tell me it's because of Molly? That's part of it. But there's something else. I can see it in your face." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "When I found my sister in that barn, she was still alive. Barely. Just enough to whisper one last thing to me before she died." Clara held her breath. She said, "Promise me you won't let them win Sam. Promise me you'll make them pay." His voice was rough. "I made that promise. And then I ran. I came to Texas, built my ranch, buried myself in work, but I never kept my promise." The man who destroyed Molly is still walking around free in Virginia, living his life like nothing happened. I failed her. You were 18 years old. That's no excuse. Sam turned to face her. When I saw you standing in that street, facing down that mob, with nothing but your own 2 feet, I saw Molly. I saw every woman who's ever been destroyed by a lie and a coward. And I thought, here's my chance. Here's how I keep my promise. Clara's throat was tight. I'm not your sister. No, you're not. Something shifted in Sam's eyes. But you're worth fighting for just the same. They stood there in the darkness, close enough to touch, though neither of them moved. The air between them was charged electric heavy with things neither of them was ready to say. I should get some sleep, Clara said finally. Tomorrow's going to be another long day. Probably. Sam didn't move. Clara. Yes. I'm glad you're here. I know that sounds strange given the circumstances, but I haven't had anyone worth fighting for in a long time. It feels good to have a purpose again. Clara smiled despite everything. You're a strange man, Samuel Garrett. So I've been told. She went inside, but she could feel his eyes on her back the whole way. And when she finally lay down in her bed, she found that sleep came easier than it had the night before. She dreamed of fire and torches and a crowd chanting her name. But in the dream, she wasn't afraid. Because in the dream, Sam was standing beside her, and together they faced the mob and didn't back down. She woke to the sound of screaming. Clara threw off the covers and ran barefoot down the stairs. The screaming was coming from outside, high and desperate, cutting through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade. She burst through the front door and nearly collided with Nate, who was half carrying a young Mexican woman toward the house. The woman's face was contorted with pain, her hands clutching her swollen belly. She's one of ours, Nate gasped. Maria. Her husband works the south pasture. Baby's coming too early. Rosa appeared behind Clara, her face pale. She's only 7 months along. The baby shouldn't be coming yet. Clara's training kicked in before her fear could stop her. Bring her inside. Get me hot water, clean cloths, and a sharp knife. Now! For a moment, everyone froze. They all knew what Clara was accused of. They all knew that the last woman she'd tried to help had died. Move! Clara's voice cracked like a whip. This woman is going to lose her baby if we don't act now. I don't care what you think of me. I'm the only one here who knows what to do. Nate met her eyes. Something passed between them, some silent understanding. Then he nodded and carried Maria into the house. The next 3 hours were the longest of Clara's life. Maria's labor was brutal. The baby was positioned wrong, just like Lily's had been, and the mother was losing blood faster than Clara could stem it. But this time there was no mob outside. This time Clara had space to think, to act, to do what she'd been trained to do. She worked with steady hands, talking Maria through every contraction, guiding the baby with practiced fingers. Rosa assisted, following Clara's instructions without question. Nate paced outside the door, his boots wearing a path in the wooden floor. And then, just as the sun broke over the horizon, a thin wail split the air. Clara held the baby up, tiny and red, and screaming with all the fury of new life. She cleared his airways, wrapped him in a clean cloth, and placed him in Maria's trembling arms. A boy, Clara whispered. Small but strong. He's going to be fine. Maria burst into tears. Gracias. Gracias, señorita. You saved my son. Clara turned away before anyone could see her own tears falling. Her hands were shaking now that the crisis was over, her whole body trembling with exhaustion and relief. She had done it. Against all odds, she had done it. She walked out onto the porch and found Sam standing there. He'd been watching through the window. She could tell from the look in his eyes, that mixture of awe and something else she couldn't quite name. You saved them, he said quietly. I did my job. Clara's voice was rough. That's all I've ever wanted to do. I know. Sam stepped closer. I know that now. They stood in silence as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Clara felt the tension slowly draining from her body, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion, and something that might have been peace. Then Nate appeared at the door, his face grim. "Mr. Sam, one of the boys just rode in from town. You need to hear this." They gathered in the main room. The ranch hand, a young man named Billy, stood twisting his hat in his hands, clearly uncomfortable. "Spit it out, son," Sam said. "What happened?" "It's Virgil Dawson, sir. He was at the saloon last night, drunk as a skunk. Started running his mouth about his wife, about how she had it coming." Clara's blood turned to ice. "What did he say exactly?" Billy glanced at her, then away. He said she was always mouthing off, always telling him what to do. He said he had to teach her a lesson sometimes, show her who was boss." "Did anyone else hear this?" "Half the saloon, ma'am, but most of them won't say nothing. Dawsons are too powerful." "Most of them." Sam leaned forward. "But not all." Billy hesitated. "There's a girl, works at the saloon, name's Jenny. She was serving Virgil's table. She heard everything. And she's scared, sir, real scared. Says Virgil told her if she ever repeated what he said he'd do to her, what he did to Lily." Clara felt sick. Where is she now? Hiding at the saloon, owners keeping her in the back room, but it's only a matter of time before Virgil comes looking for her. Sam was already reaching for his hat. "I'll ride into town. Bring her back here." "That's too dangerous," Clara protested. "Harriet will have people watching you. The moment you show up, she'll know something's wrong." "Then what do you suggest?" Clara's mind raced. "Send someone she won't suspect. Someone who has legitimate business in town. Someone who can slip Jenny out without raising alarms." "That's a tall order." "I'll go," Rosa said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "I go to town every week for supplies," Rosa continued. "No one thinks twice about it. I can talk to Jenny, convince her to hide in my wagon under the vegetables. No one will search an old woman's groceries." Sam shook his head. "It's too risky. It's the best chance we have." Clara looked at Rosa. "Can you do this?" "Mija, I've been smuggling things past suspicious men since before you were born. This will be easy." Rosa left an hour later, her wagon loaded with empty crates she planned to fill with supplies. Clara watched her go with a knot of anxiety in her stomach. "She'll be fine," Sam said, appearing at her side. "Rosa's tougher than she looks." "Everyone keeps telling me things will be fine. But they're not fine. A woman is dead. Her baby is dead. And the man who killed them is walking around free, bragging about it in saloons." "Not for long." Sam's voice was hard. "If Jenny can testify to what she heard, it changes everything. That's evidence of motive, maybe even confession. If she's willing to testify, if Harriet doesn't get to her first. One thing at a time, Clara. That's how you survive out here." The morning stretched into afternoon. Clara tried to rest, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lily's face. She paced the halls, jumped at every sound, drove herself half mad with waiting. Around 2 o'clock, a rider appeared on the horizon. Clara ran to the window, her heart hammering. But it wasn't Rosa. It was Monroe, the lawyer, riding hard and fast. He burst into the house without knocking, his face flushed with exertion and excitement. "I found them," he gasped. "The medical records. I found them." Clara grabbed his arm. "Where?" "Harriet's house. A servant contacted me this morning. Said she saw Mrs. Dawson burning papers in the fireplace 2 nights ago. But she was interrupted before she could finish. The servant managed to save some of them." Monroe pulled a bundle of singed papers from his satchel. Clara snatched them, her hands trembling as she flipped through the charred pages. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What is it?" Sam moved to her side. Clara held up one of the papers. "This is Lily's medical examination from 6 weeks ago. Doc Miller noted extensive bruising on her arms, back, and abdomen. He wrote that the injuries were consistent with being struck repeatedly. Her voice shook. He also noted that the bruising around her stomach was severe enough to potentially cause complications with the pregnancy. He knew. Sam's voice was dangerous. The doctor knew Virgil was beating her. He knew, and he did nothing. He just wrote it down in his files like it was nothing, and then he left town when things got difficult. Clara felt rage building in her chest. Lily died because no one protected her. No one stood up for her. You tried to stand up for her. Sam's hand found her shoulder. You noticed the bruises. You asked questions. And she died anyway. Clara's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. But this proves I didn't kill her. The complications I saw, the abruption, the hemorrhaging, it was all caused by Virgil's abuse. I couldn't have saved her no matter what I did. She was dying before I ever walked into that room. Monroe was already pacing. This is good. This is very good. Combined with testimony from the saloon girl about Virgil's confession, we have a strong case. Strong enough to get the murder charges against you dropped. Maybe strong enough to bring charges against Virgil instead. What about Harriet? Clara asked. She's the one who destroyed evidence, who spread lies, who tried to have me killed by a mob. That's trickier. Destroying evidence is a crime, but proving she ordered it is difficult. The servant who saved these papers, she's terrified of Mrs. Dawson. I'm not sure she'll testify. Then we need to make Harriet confess. Clara's voice was hard. Or we need to find another way to bring her down. Before anyone could respond, the sound of wagon wheels reached them. Clara ran to the door, hope and fear warring in her chest. It was Rosa. But she was alone. Clara's heart sank as Rosa climbed down from the wagon, her face grave. What happened? Where's Jenny? Gone. Rosa's voice was bitter. Virgil got to her first. Took her from the saloon this morning. No one knows where. Gone. Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. But she was our witness. She was our only hope of proving what Virgil confessed. I know, mija. I'm sorry. I was too late. Sam slammed his fist against the porch railing. Damn it! Every time we get close, they slip away. There's something else. Rosa reached into her apron and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I found this nailed to the general store door. Everyone in town is talking about it. Clara took the paper and unfolded it. Her blood turned to ice as she read the words scrawled there. What does it say? Sam demanded. Clara's voice came out barely a whisper. It's a reward poster. Harriet is offering $500 to anyone who brings me back to Dusty Hollow, dead or alive. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. $500. In 1875 Texas, that was more than most ranch hands made in a year. More than enough to tempt any desperate man, any opportunistic bounty hunter, any greedy neighbor. We need to leave. Sam's voice was tight. Take you somewhere she can't reach. Where? Clara demanded. California, Mexico. There's nowhere far enough. Harriet won't stop until I'm dead. As long as I'm alive, I'm proof that her family is built on lies and violence. Then we stop her. Sam turned to face Clara, his blue eyes blazing with determination. We take this fight to her. We don't run. We don't hide. We stand our ground, and we make her face what her son did. How our witness is gone. The doctor is gone. We have medical records that prove Virgil was abusing Lily, but without someone to corroborate them, Harriet will just claim they're forgeries. Then we find another way. Sam stepped closer to Clara. I didn't save you from that mob just to lose you to a reward poster. You're not going to die, Clara. Not while I'm breathing. Clara stared at him. In the afternoon light, she could see the fierce determination in his face, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. He meant every word. You barely know me, she whispered. I know you're innocent. I know you're brave. I know you saved a woman and her baby this morning when you had every reason to walk away. Sam took her hands in his. And I know that I'm not going to stand by and watch another good woman be destroyed by lies. Not this time. Not ever again. Clara's throat was tight with emotions she couldn't name. Sam? A shout from the ranch yard cut her off. Nate came running toward the house, waving his arms. "Riders coming, at least a dozen of them." Clara's heart seized. Harriet. Worse. Nate was breathing hard. "It's Virgil, and he's got a federal marshal with him." Sam moved instantly. "Get Clara inside. Bar the doors. Don't let anyone in until I say so." "Sam, no." Clara grabbed his arm. "If you interfere with a federal marshal, they'll arrest you too." "I don't care." "I do." Clara's voice broke. "You've already risked too much for me. I won't let you destroy yourself trying to save someone who can't be saved." "Don't say that." Sam gripped her shoulders, his eyes fierce. "Don't you dare say that. You're worth saving, Clara. You're worth everything." Before Clara could respond, Sam kissed her. It was hard and desperate, a kiss that tasted like goodbye. When he pulled back, Clara's eyes were wet with tears. "Get inside," Sam said roughly. "Let me handle this." "Sam. Go. Now." Rosa took Clara's arm and pulled her into the house. Through the window, Clara watched as Sam walked out to meet the approaching riders, his posture straight and unyielding. Virgil Dawson dismounted first, a triumphant sneer on his face. Behind him, a man in a federal marshal's badge swung down from his horse. "Samuel Garrett," the marshal called out. "I have a warrant for the arrest of Clara May Bennett on charges of murder. You're harboring a fugitive." "She's not a fugitive." Sam's voice carried clearly. "She hasn't been convicted of anything. She hasn't even had a trial." "That's what the arrest is for." The marshal stepped forward. "Where is she?" "Not here." Virgil laughed. "He's lying. Everyone knows he brought her here. Search the house, Marshal. She's probably hiding under his bed." "You don't have a warrant to search my property," Sam said calmly. "You have a warrant for her arrest. That's not the same thing." The marshal's eyes narrowed. "Don't play games with me, Garrett. I've heard about you. You may own half this county, but you don't own me. I'm not trying to own you. I'm asking you to do your job properly." Sam reached into his pocket and pulled out the charred medical records. "Before you arrest anyone, you need to see this." "What is it?" "Evidence that Lily Dawson was being beaten by her husband. Evidence that her injuries caused the complications that killed her. Evidence that Clara Bennett is innocent of murder because the real killer is standing right there." Sam pointed directly at Virgil. The marshal took the papers, his expression skeptical. But as he read, his face changed. Clara watched through the window, barely breathing, as the man's eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" "From Doc Miller's files. The same files that Harriet Dawson tried to destroy to cover up what her son did." Virgil's face went purple. "That's a lie. Those papers are forgeries. You can't believe anything this man says. He's protecting a murderer because he's sweet on her." "Is this your wife's handwriting?" The marshal held up one of the pages. Virgil's mouth opened and closed. "Because this note here at the bottom, it says, 'Help me. He'll kill me.' And it's signed Lily." Clara's heart stopped. She hadn't seen that note. It must have been hidden in the pages she hadn't had time to read. Virgil's face went from purple to white. She wouldn't." "Mr. Dawson." The marshal's voice was cold now. "Did you or did you not beat your wife during her pregnancy?" That's not... You can't just... Answer the question." "She was my wife," Virgil exploded. "What I did in my own home is my business. No woman tells me what to do. No woman mouths off to me and gets away with it. I had to teach her. I had to make her understand." The words fell into a terrible silence. Clara watched as the marshal slowly returned the papers to Sam. She watched as Virgil seemed to realize what he'd just admitted. She watched as the color drained from his face. "Virgil Dawson." The marshal's voice was formal now. "I'm placing you under arrest for the assault and possible murder of Lily Dawson." "What?" "No, you can't do this. My mother will..." "Your mother isn't here." The marshal nodded to his deputies. Take him." Clara burst through the door. "Marshall, wait." Everyone turned to look at her. She walked toward them slowly, her chin high, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "I'm Clara May Bennett. I'm the woman you came to arrest. But before you take Virgil away, I want him to answer one question." The marshal hesitated, then nodded. Clara faced Virgil, the man who had tried to destroy her, the man who had killed his wife and child, the man who had hunted her like an animal. "Where is Jenny?" Clara asked quietly. "The girl from the saloon, the one who heard you confess." Virgil's eyes darted wildly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You took her this morning. Where is she?" "I didn't take anyone. You're crazy. You're lying." "Marshal," Sam said, "there's a witness who heard Virgil confess to beating his wife. She disappeared this morning. If he's done something to her..." The marshal's jaw tightened. "Mr. Dawson, where is the girl?" Virgil's mask cracked. Clara could see the fear beneath it, the desperation of a man who had run out of lies. "She's at the old Miller place," he blurted. "The abandoned homestead past the creek. I just wanted to scare her. I wasn't going to hurt her. I just needed her to keep quiet." Sam was already moving. "Nate, get the horses. We're going to find her." "Sam, wait." Clara caught his arm. "I'm coming with you." "Clara, if she's hurt, she'll need medical attention. I'm coming." Sam looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. 20 minutes later, they found Jenny. She was tied to a chair in the empty farmhouse, gagged and terrified, but alive. When Clara cut her bonds and pulled the gag from her mouth, the girl burst into tears. "I thought I was going to die," she sobbed. "He said he was going to kill me like he killed his wife. He said no one would ever find me." "You're safe now." Clara held her close. "It's over. He can't hurt you anymore. I'll testify." Jenny's voice was fierce despite her tears. "I'll tell everyone what he said. I'll make sure he pays for what he did." Sam watched as Clara comforted the frightened girl, and something in his chest shifted. This was who Clara really was. Not a murderer, not a witch, just a woman who cared deeply about others and would risk everything to protect them. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Jenny dozed against Rosa's shoulder, exhausted by her ordeal. Sam rode beside Clara, neither of them speaking. When they finally reached the ranch, the marshal was waiting. "Miss Bennett," he said formally, "in light of recent events, I'm dropping the murder charges against you. Mr. Dawson has been taken into custody and will face trial for his crimes." Clara felt her knees go weak. "It's over." "Not quite." The marshal hesitated. "Mrs. Harriet Dawson is claiming that her son was coerced into his confession. She's threatening to bring charges against Mr. Garrett for interfering with justice." Sam laughed a harsh sound. "Let her try. I've got enough evidence to bury that family 10 times over." "Be careful, Mr. Garrett. Mrs. Dawson is a powerful enemy." "So am I." After the marshal left, Clara stood alone on the porch watching the sun set over the Texas plains. Her hands were still trembling, though whether from relief or exhaustion or something else entirely she couldn't say. Sam appeared beside her. "How are you feeling?" "I don't know." Clara shook her head. "This morning I was a wanted woman. Now I'm free. But it doesn't feel real. None of it feels real." "It's real." Sam turned her to face him. "You're free. You're safe. And you're..." He stopped. "I'm what..." Sam's eyes searched her face. Clara could see the struggle in him, the words he wanted to say, but couldn't quite release. "You're not leaving," he said finally. "Are you?" Clara looked at this man who had saved her life, who had believed in her when no one else would, who had kissed her like she was the only thing that mattered in the world. "No," she whispered. "I'm not leaving." Sam pulled her close, and this time when he kissed her, it didn't taste like goodbye. It tasted like beginning. But in the shadows beyond the ranch gates, a writer sat watching. A writer who worked for Harriet Dawson. A writer who had just witnessed everything that happened. And as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, the writer turned his horse toward Dusty Hollow and the woman who was waiting for his report. The next 3 days passed in a strange calm that Clara didn't trust. She and Sam fell into a rhythm that felt both natural and terrifying. Mornings, she helped Rosa in the kitchen. Afternoons, she checked on Maria and her baby. Evenings, she sat with Sam on the porch, talking about everything and nothing until the stars came out. They didn't kiss again. Not because Clara didn't want to, but because neither of them seemed to know what came next. The danger wasn't over. Harriet was still out there plotting revenge, and until that threat was resolved, anything more felt like tempting fate. On the 4th morning, Clara woke to the sound of hoofbeats. She threw on a robe and ran downstairs, her heart hammering. But it wasn't Harriet's men. It was Monroe, the lawyer, riding hard and fast. "We have a problem," he said before he'd even dismounted. Sam emerged from the barn, his face tight. "What kind of problem?" "Virgil escaped custody last night." Clara felt the blood drain from her face. "What?" "Someone helped him. Bribed the deputy, got him a horse. He's in the wind." Sam's jaw clenched. "Harriet." "Almost certainly. But there's more." Monroe pulled a paper from his satchel. "She's filed a civil suit against you, Sam. Claims you kidnapped Clara Bennett and are holding her against her will. She's demanding you release her into the custody of the county sheriff." "That's insane." Clara stepped forward. "I'm here voluntarily. I've been here voluntarily from the beginning." "I know that. You know that. But Harriet has witnesses who will swear they saw Sam drag you away from that mob by force. She's twisting the story, making him look like the villain." Sam laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course she is. She can't destroy Clara directly anymore, so she's coming after me instead. There's a hearing scheduled for tomorrow in Ridgewater. If you don't appear, you'll be held in contempt. If you do appear, Harriet's lawyers will try to paint you as an obsessed man who took advantage of a vulnerable woman. And if Clara testifies, then it becomes her word against Harriet's witnesses, and Harriet has more witnesses." Clara's hands curled into fists. "So no matter what we do, she wins." "Not necessarily." Monroe looked at Sam. "There's another option, one that would neutralize her entire case." "What option?" Monroe hesitated. "If you and Clara were married, Harriet couldn't claim you're holding her against her will. A husband has legal authority over his wife. Whatever you did to protect her becomes legally justified." The silence that followed was deafening. Clara felt Sam's eyes on her, but she couldn't meet them. Marriage. They'd known each other less than a week. They'd kissed exactly once. And now this lawyer was suggesting they bind themselves together for life just to outmaneuver a vindictive old woman. "That's not a solution," Clara said quietly. "That's a trap. It's a legal strategy. It's wrong." Clara finally looked at Sam. "I won't marry you to win a court case. That's not fair to either of us." Sam's expression was unreadable. "Clara." "No." She shook her head. "I've spent my whole life being pushed into corners, being told I have no choices. I won't let Harriet Dawson push me into marriage with a man I barely know, no matter how much I—" She stopped herself. "We'll find another way." Monroe sighed. "There may not be another way." "Then we make one." Clara's voice was hard. "I'm done running. I'm done hiding. If Harriet wants a fight, she'll get one. But I'll fight on my own terms, not hers." She walked into the house without looking back. Sam found her an hour later standing in the room where she'd saved Maria's baby. Her hands were gripping the edge of the empty birthing bed, her knuckles white. "Clara, don't." Her voice was rough. "Don't tell me marriage is the answer. Don't tell me it's the only way. I've heard that from men my whole life. Just marry him, Clara. Just give in, Clara. Just let a man take care of you, Clara. I'm tired of it. I wasn't going to say any of that. She turned to face him. Then what were you going to say? Sam moved closer. I was going to say that you're right. Marriage shouldn't be a weapon. It shouldn't be a strategy. And it sure as hell shouldn't be something you're forced into because some bitter old woman won't let go of her grudge. Clara stared at him. You agree with me. I agree that if we ever get married, it should be because we want to, not because we have to. He reached out and took her hand. I'm not going to pressure you, Clara. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever Harriet throws at us, we'll face it together, on equal terms. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Why do you have to be so decent? It's a character flaw. I've been working on it. Despite everything, she laughed. It was a broken, watery sound, but it was real. We need a plan, she said. A real plan. Something that doesn't involve me becoming someone's property. I might have an idea. Sam's expression shifted. But you're not going to like it. Try me. We find Virgil before he finds us. He's the key to all of this. If we can bring him in, force him to testify about what Harriet ordered him to do, her whole case falls apart. Find him how he could be anywhere. Not anywhere. Sam's jaw tightened. I know Virgil Dawson. He's a coward and a drunk. He won't run far. He'll go somewhere he feels safe, somewhere his mother can protect him. The Dawson house. Too obvious. The sheriff would look there first. Sam shook his head. But the Dawsons own other property. Hunting cabin up in the hills. Perfect place to hide. You want to go after him yourself? I want to end this, once and for all. Clara grabbed his arm. Sam, if you go after Virgil and something happens, Harriet will use it against you. She'll say you tried to kill him or kidnap him or God knows what else. Then come with me. What? You're a witness. You're also the one he tried to destroy. If we find him together, if you're the one who talks him down, it's not just me acting alone. It's justice. Clara's heart pounded. That's insane. Probably. Sam's eyes were intense. But it's also our best chance. Harriet won't expect you to come after her son. She thinks you're a helpless woman hiding behind my protection. Prove her wrong. Clara thought about the mob in the street. The torches. The rope. She thought about Lily dead on the birthing bed. She thought about all the times she'd been underestimated, dismissed, written off. All right, she said. Let's go find him. They rode out at noon, leaving Nate in charge of the ranch with strict instructions. If they weren't back by morning, he was to contact Monroe and proceed with whatever legal defense was necessary. You're either very brave or very foolish, Rosa said as she watched Clara mount up. I haven't decided which. Maybe both, Clara replied. The ride to the Dawson hunting cabin took 3 hours. Sam knew the way, having hunted these hills since he first arrived in Texas 10 years ago. Clara rode beside him, her borrowed rifle heavy across her saddle, her nerves wound tight. They found the cabin just as the sun began to sink toward the horizon. There. Sam pointed to a thin wisp of smoke rising above the trees. Someone's there. Could be anyone. Could be, but I don't think so. Sam dismounted and handed Clara his reins. Stay here. Let me check it out first. Like hell. Clara swung down from her horse. We do this together or not at all. Sam looked like he wanted to argue. Then he sighed. Fine. But stay behind me. They approached the cabin on foot, moving quietly through the brush. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd never done anything like this before. She was a midwife, not a bounty hunter. But she'd also never been hunted by a mob or accused of murder. Times changed people. Circumstances made them into things they never imagined. Sam held up a hand, signaling her to stop. They were close enough now to see the cabin clearly. A single horse was tied outside. Light flickered in the windows. He's alone, Sam whispered. Are you sure? One horse, one set of tracks. He's alone. Sam moved toward the door. Clara followed, her rifle ready. When Sam kicked in the door, Virgil Dawson was exactly where they expected to find him, drunk at a table, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in front of him. He scrambled backward, knocking over his chair. How did you find me? You're not as clever as you think you are, Virgil. Sam leveled his rifle at the man's chest. Now we're going to have a conversation. I'm not talking to you. You can't make me. No, I can't. Sam stepped aside. But maybe she can. Clara moved forward, and Virgil's face went pale. He breathed. You're supposed to be dead. Sorry to disappoint you. Clara's voice was steady, despite her hammering heart. We need to talk about your mother, Virgil. About what she ordered you to do. I'm not saying anything. You already said plenty. In the saloon. To Jenny. Remember, you confessed to beating your wife. You told her you killed Lily. That's not... I was drunk. I didn't know what I was saying. The law doesn't care if you were drunk. Clara stepped closer. You're already going to prison for what you did to Lily. The only question is whether your mother goes with you. Virgil's eyes darted wildly. You can't touch my mother. She's powerful. She'll destroy you. She's already tried. Clara knelt so she was at Virgil's eye level. And she failed. Your mother sent a mob to kill me. She destroyed evidence. She helped you escape custody. All of that is illegal, Virgil. All of it can send her to prison. She did it to protect me. She did it to protect herself. You're just a tool to her. Don't you see that? Clara's voice softened. She used you, Virgil. She always has. She told you Lily was mouthing off that you had to teach her a lesson. She encouraged your violence because it made her feel powerful. That's not true. Isn't it? Did she ever tell you to stop? Did she ever say what you were doing was wrong? Virgil's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. She knew you were beating Lily. She knew it was dangerous for the baby, and she didn't stop you because she didn't care. All she cared about was maintaining control. Over you, over your wife, over everyone in her orbit. Shut up. Virgil's voice cracked. Just shut up. Your mother let your wife and child die, Virgil. She could have intervened. She could have protected Lily from you. Instead, she covered it up and blamed me. She let an innocent woman be hunted by a mob because she couldn't admit that her son was a murderer. I'm not a murderer. Then prove it. Clara leaned closer. Testify against her. Tell the truth about what she told you to do. Help us bring her to justice, and maybe you can find some redemption for what you've done. Virgil was shaking now, tears streaming down his face. She'll kill me. If I betray her, she'll kill me. She's already killing you. Sam spoke for the first time. You're hiding in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, drinking yourself to death, terrified of your own mother. That's not living, Virgil. That's dying slowly. You don't understand. You don't know what she's like. Then tell us. Clara reached out and took Virgil's hand. The man flinched, but he didn't pull away. Tell us everything. Help us stop her. Help us make sure no one else gets hurt. For a long moment, Virgil said nothing. Then slowly his shoulders slumped. She told me to do it, he whispered. When I first started hitting Lily, I felt bad. I wanted to stop. But Mama said a man has to keep control of his household. She said Lily was disrespectful, that she needed to learn her place. She said if I couldn't control my own wife, I wasn't a real man. Go on. When Lily got pregnant, things got worse. She was tired all the time, sick. She couldn't do what I wanted her to do. Mama said I was being too soft. Said I needed to remind Lily who was boss. His voice broke. I didn't mean to hurt the baby. I never wanted to hurt the baby. But you did. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know that she would... Virgil collapsed into sobs. And then when she died, Mama said we had to blame someone else. She said if the truth came out, our family would be ruined. She told me to say it was your fault. She told me what to say, how to act everything. And the mob, the torches. That was Mama's idea too. She said you needed to be eliminated. Said as long as you were alive, you were a threat. She paid people to spread rumors. She planted that poison in your room. Virgil looked up at Clara, his face a mask of misery. I didn't want to kill you. I just wanted it to stop. I wanted all of it to stop. Clara stood slowly. Her hands were trembling, but her voice was steady. You'll testify to all of this in court. If you protect me from her, yes, I'll tell everyone what she did. Sam lowered his rifle. Then let's get you out of here. They were halfway to the horses when the gunshot rang out. Clara felt the bullet whistle past her ear. She dropped to the ground instinctively, her heart exploding with terror. Get down! Sam threw himself over her, shielding her body with his. Another shot, then another. It's Mama! Virgil screamed. She found us! Clara looked up and saw riders emerging from the trees. 4 of them, rifles raised. And at their head, mounted on a pale gray horse, sat Harriet Dawson. You didn't think I'd let you take my son, did you? Harriet's voice carried clearly. You underestimated me, Mr. Garrett. That was a mistake. Sam rose slowly, pulling Clara behind him. This is over, Harriet. Virgil has confessed everything. Your son, your money, your influence, none of it will protect you now. Confessed? Harriet laughed. My son is clearly suffering from a mental breakdown brought on by the trauma of losing his wife. Nothing he says can be trusted. Everyone will understand that. Everyone will understand that you're a monster. I'm a mother protecting her child. Harriet's eyes were cold. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Mama, please. Virgil stumbled forward. Don't do this. It's over. Just let them go. Be quiet, Virgil. Harriet didn't even look at her son. You've done enough damage. I confessed. I told them everything. Then you've betrayed your family. Again. Virgil's face crumpled. Mama, I said be quiet. Harriet's voice cracked like a whip. Men take them. All 3 of them. The riders moved forward. Sam raised his rifle. First man who takes another step gets a bullet between the eyes. You can't shoot all of us, Harriet said calmly. No, but I can shoot you. Sam's rifle swung toward Harriet. The older woman went pale. You wouldn't dare. Try me. For a long, terrible moment, no one moved. Clara could hear her own heartbeat, could feel Sam's body tense beside her. This was it. This was the moment everything would be decided. Then a new sound reached them. Hoofbeats. Many hoofbeats. Coming fast. Harriet turned and her face went white. A dozen riders crested the hill. At their head rode the federal marshal, his badge gleaming in the fading light. Behind him came Nate Rosa and what looked like half of Sam's ranch hands. Harriet Dawson! The marshal's voice boomed across the clearing. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and assault with a deadly weapon. Lower your weapons now, or my men will fire. Harriet's riders looked at each other. One by one they dropped their guns. Harriet herself didn't move. Her face was frozen in an expression of disbelief and rage. This isn't over, she hissed. Yes, ma'am. The marshal dismounted and approached her. It is. As they led Harriet away in chains, Clara felt her knees give out. Sam caught her before she hit the ground. Easy, he murmured. I've got you. It's over. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. It's really over. It's over. Sam pulled her close. You're safe now. You're finally safe. Clara buried her face against his chest and wept. Later that night, after statements had been given and prisoners had been transported and the ranch had finally fallen quiet, Clara found Sam standing alone at the edge of his property. Sam. He turned. In the moonlight, his face was soft, younger than she'd ever seen it. "I've been thinking," he said. "That sounds dangerous." Monroe was right about one thing. Marriage would solve a lot of legal problems. Clara's heart stuttered. "Sam." "But you were right, too. Marriage shouldn't be about legal problems. It should be about something else." He stepped closer. "Clara, I don't want to marry you because it's convenient. I don't want to marry you to protect you, or save you, or any of that." "Then why would you want to marry me?" Sam took her hands in his. "Because when I look at you, I see the bravest woman I've ever known. Because you saved Maria's baby when you had every reason to walk away. Because you faced down a man who tried to destroy you and made him confess his sins. Because when you laugh, something in my chest comes alive that I thought died years ago." Clara couldn't breathe. "I want to marry you because I love you," Sam said simply. "Not because of what you can give me or what I can protect you from. Just because of who you are." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "Sam, we've known each other less than 2 weeks." "I know, it's insane," he smiled. "But here's the thing. I've spent 10 years building this ranch. 10 years alone. And in 2 weeks, you've made me feel more alive than I've felt in all those years combined. If that's not worth fighting for, I don't know what is." Clara reached up and touched his face. "I'm scared." "So am I. I don't know how to be a wife. I don't know how to be a husband. Not really. Not the right way." Sam covered her hand with his. "But we could learn together. If you're willing." Clara thought about all the reasons she should say no. It was too fast. It was too dangerous. They barely knew each other, but then she thought about Sam facing down a mob for her, about him believing in her when no one else would, about the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever seen. "Yes," she whispered. Sam's eyes widened. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you." Clara laughed through her tears. "God help us both, yes." Sam pulled her into his arms and kissed her under the Texas stars, and Clara knew, with absolute certainty, that she was finally home. The wedding took place 3 weeks later, on the hottest day of August. Clara had wanted something small, just her and Sam, and a few witnesses. But Rosa had other ideas. By the time the day arrived, half the county had been invited, and the ranch was transformed into something Clara barely recognized. "This is too much," Clara protested, as Rosa helped her into the white dress they'd ordered from San Antonio. "This is exactly enough." Rosa smoothed the fabric over Clara's shoulders. "You've been through hell, mija. You deserve one perfect day." Clara looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her was a stranger. She looked almost beautiful with her auburn hair piled high and small white flowers woven through it. She looked like someone who had never been chased by a mob or accused of murder or forced to fight for her own survival. She looked like a bride. "I'm scared," Clara whispered. "Of course you are." Rosa squeezed her hand. "Marriage is terrifying, but so is everything worth having." The ceremony was held in the main yard under a canopy of white fabric that billowed in the summer breeze. Clara walked toward Sam on legs that trembled, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. But then she saw his face. Sam stood at the altar in his best suit, his dark hair combed back, his blue eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made everything else disappear. He looked at her like she was the sun rising after the longest night of his life. Clara's fear melted away. The minister spoke words that Clara barely heard. She was too focused on Sam's hands holding hers, on the warmth of his skin, on the steady beat of his pulse beneath her fingers. "Do you, Clara May Bennett, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." Her voice didn't waver. "And do you, Samuel Garrett, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." Sam's voice was rough with emotion. "With everything I am and everything I have." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride." Sam pulled her close and kissed her deep and thorough, while the crowd cheered. Clara clung to him, laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by joy she hadn't known she was capable of feeling. "Mrs. Garrett," Sam murmured against her lips. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." Clara smiled up at him. "So do I." The celebration lasted until well past midnight. Clara danced with Sam, with Nate, with ranch hands, whose names she was still learning. She ate food she couldn't taste, and drank champagne that went straight to her head. She accepted congratulations from people who had once wanted her dead, and she found to her surprise that she meant it when she thanked them. Forgiveness, she was learning, was easier when you had something worth living for. Around 1 in the morning, Sam finally extracted her from the party and led her to the house. Their house now, their home. "Wait." Clara stopped at the threshold. "I need to tell you something." Sam's expression shifted to concern. "What is it?" "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Clara watched Sam's face cycle through shocked disbelief and finally overwhelming joy. How long have you known?" "A few days. I wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you. I didn't want you to think I was trying to trap you, or that you had to—" Sam silenced her with a kiss that stole her breath. "Clara Garrett," he said when he finally pulled back. "You are the most infuriating, stubborn, wonderful woman I have ever known. And the idea that you're carrying my child makes me the happiest man alive. You're not upset." "Upset." Sam laughed, a sound of pure joy. "I've wanted a family my whole life. A real family. Someone to build for, to come home to. And now I have that. I have everything." He cupped her face in his hands. "Thank you. Thank you for choosing me." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saving me." "You saved yourself," Sam said softly. "I just gave you a place to land." They went inside together, closing the door on the celebration and the past and everything that had tried to destroy them. Tomorrow, there would be work to do. Tomorrow, they would build their new life. But tonight belonged only to them. The months that followed were the happiest of Clara's life. Her pregnancy progressed smoothly despite her fears. The baby grew strong inside her, kicking and rolling, a constant reminder of the future they were building. Sam became almost comically protective, following Clara around the house, insisting she rest when she felt fine, worrying over every small discomfort. "You're worse than a mother hen," Clara told him one evening, pushing away the third cup of tea he'd brought her in an hour. "I can't help it." Sam sat beside her, his hand resting on her swollen belly. "I've waited so long for this. I can't bear the thought of anything going wrong." "Nothing's going to go wrong." Clara covered his hand with hers. "I'm a midwife, remember? I know what I'm doing." "That doesn't stop me from worrying." "I know." She leaned into him. "But try to worry a little less. This baby is going to be fine. We're all going to be fine." The trial happened in November, just before the first snows came. Clara hadn't wanted to testify, but Monroe insisted. The jury needed to hear her side of the story, he said. They needed to see the woman Harriet had tried to destroy. So Clara put on her best dress now, straining slightly over her pregnant belly, and rode to Ridgewater with Sam at her side. The courtroom was packed. Everyone wanted to see the conclusion of the scandal that had consumed Dusty Hollow for months. Clara saw familiar faces in the crowd. Some sympathetic, some curious, some still hostile. She held her head high and walked to the witness stand. The prosecutor's questions were straightforward. Clara told the truth about everything. About Lily's labor, about the complications, about the accusations that followed. She spoke clearly and calmly, letting the facts speak for themselves. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. He was a slick man from Houston, clearly expensive, brought in by what remained of the Dawson family's money. He approached Clara with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Garrett, you claim you did nothing wrong during Mrs. Dawson's labor. Is that correct?" "I did everything possible to save her and her baby. The complications were beyond anyone's ability to treat." And yet you were the only one present when she died. Dr. Miller arrived shortly after. He can confirm the cause of death. Dr. Miller, who conveniently disappeared for weeks and whose medical records were mysteriously destroyed. The lawyer paced in front of the jury. Isn't it true, Mrs. Garrett, that you had a personal vendetta against the Dawson family? No. Isn't it true that Virgil Dawson rejected your romantic advances, and you blamed his wife for that rejection? Clara laughed. She couldn't help it. Mr. Dawson never rejected me. I rejected him. Repeatedly and violently. A murmur ran through the courtroom. You admit to being violent toward the defendant's son? I admit to defending myself when he cornered me after church and refused to take no for an answer. Clara's voice was steady. I also admit to having eyes. I saw the bruises on Lily's body. I saw how she flinched when her husband entered the room. I know what abuse looks like, and Virgil Dawson was abusing his wife. That abuse is what killed her, not anything I did or didn't do. Objection. The defense attorney's face was red. The witness is speculating. The witness is stating facts that are already in evidence. The prosecutor countered. Dr. Miller's records clearly show a pattern of injuries consistent with domestic violence. Those records could have been forged. By whom, Mrs. Garrett? She was hiding for her life when those records were discovered. She had no opportunity to forge anything. The judge banged his gavel. Enough. The objection is overruled. Continue, Mrs. Garrett. Clara looked directly at the jury. I've spent my entire adult life helping women bring their babies into the world. I've saved more lives than I can count. When Lily Dawson died, I mourned her. I still mourn her. But I did not kill her. Her husband did, and his mother helped him cover it up. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Clara stepped down from the stand with her head held high. Sam was waiting for her, his face tight with emotion. You were incredible, he whispered. I told the truth, that's all. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Clara paced the hallway outside the courtroom, too anxious to sit, too pregnant to pace comfortably. Sam stayed beside her, matching her restless steps, saying nothing because there was nothing to say. When the jury returned, Clara's heart nearly stopped. We find the defendant Harriet Dawson guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Clara grabbed Sam's arm, suddenly dizzy. Guilty, she repeated. She's guilty. It's over. Sam pulled her close. Clara, it's really over. Harriet Dawson was led away in chains, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. As she passed Clara, she stopped. This isn't finished, Harriet hissed. You've destroyed my family. My son is in prison. I'm going to prison. But mark my words, you'll pay for this. Somehow, someday you'll pay. Clara met the older woman's eyes without flinching. No, Mrs. Dawson, I won't. Because you have no power over me anymore. You never did. You only had fear, and I'm not afraid of you. Harriet's face twisted with rage, but the deputies pulled her away before she could respond. Clara watched her go without satisfaction or triumph. Just relief. Bone-deep, soul-cleansing relief. It was finally over. The baby came on a cold December night, 3 weeks before Christmas. Clara had been preparing dinner when the first pain hit sharp and unmistakable. She gripped the edge of the counter and breathed through it, waiting for it to pass. Sam, she called. It's time. The next 12 hours were the hardest of Clara's life. She had attended hundreds of births, but nothing could have prepared her for experiencing it herself. The pain was overwhelming, wave after wave of agony that seemed endless. But Sam was there holding her hand, talking her through every contraction. Rosa was there, calm and capable. And when the moment finally came, Clara reached down and caught her own daughter as she emerged red-faced and screaming into the world. A girl, Clara whispered, tears streaming down her face. Sam, it's a girl. Sam looked at the baby in Clara's arms, and his face crumpled. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he reached out to touch his daughter's tiny hand. She's perfect, he said, his voice breaking. Clara, she's absolutely perfect. What will you name her? Rosa asked, wiping her own eyes. Clara looked at Sam. They had discussed names for months, unable to agree on anything. But now, looking at her daughter's face, she knew. Molly, Clara said softly. Molly Rose Garrett, after the sister Sam lost. Sam made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. Clara. She should be remembered. She should live on in some way. Let our daughter carry her name. Sam leaned down and kissed Clara's forehead, then the baby's. Molly Rose Garrett. Welcome to the world, little one. The years that followed were rich and full in ways Clara had never imagined possible. Molly grew from infant to toddler to little girl, fierce and curious and stubborn as her parents. She learned to walk by chasing ranch dogs. She learned to talk by demanding more stories at bedtime. She learned to ride almost before she could run, perched in front of her father on his big black horse. When Molly was 3, Clara gave birth to twins, 2 boys who arrived squalling and demanding and utterly different from each other. Thomas was quiet and thoughtful. James was loud and reckless. Together, they turned the ranch house into a chaos of noise and joy. Clara opened a clinic on the ranch property, a proper building with examination rooms and supplies. Women came from miles around to have their babies with the midwife everyone now knew as the best in 3 counties. Clara trained young women in her methods, passing on the knowledge her mother had given her. Sam expanded the ranch, buying more land, hiring more hands. But he never lost sight of what mattered most. He came home every evening for dinner. He read stories to his children before bed. He held Clara every night like she was the most precious thing in the world. Do you ever think about how we started? Clara asked one evening, watching the sunset from their porch while the children played in the yard. All the time. Sam's arm tightened around her. Every time I look at Molly, I think about that mob, about how close we came to losing everything before we'd even found it. I try not to think about it. Why? Clara leaned into him. Because it makes me angry, and then it makes me sad, and then it makes me grateful all at once. It's exhausting. Sam chuckled. That's life, I think. Anger and sadness and gratitude all mixed together. I'm mostly grateful now. Clara watched Molly chase her brothers across the yard, her laughter ringing through the evening air. I never thought I'd have this. A family. A home. Someone who loves me, not despite who I am, but because of it. I love every part of you, Sam said quietly. The stubborn parts, the angry parts, the parts that broke a man's nose with a bedpan. Clara laughed. He deserved it. I'm sure he did. Sam turned her to face him. Clara, I need to tell you something. Her heart skipped. What? I've been thinking about Harriet, about what she said at the trial. Clara's smile faded. Sam, she's in prison. She can't hurt us. I know, but her words have been bothering me, the idea that somehow, someday she'd make us pay. He took her hands in his. I've made arrangements. If anything ever happens to me, you and the children will be protected. Financially, legally, every way I can manage. I've made sure of it. Sam, nothing's going to happen to you. Probably not. But I've learned not to take anything for granted. His eyes were intense. You gave me a family, Clara. You gave me a reason to live. I want to make sure that family is safe no matter what. Clara reached up and touched his face. You're a good man, Samuel Garrett. I'm a lucky man. He kissed her palm. The luckiest man alive. Later that night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Clara stood at the window of their bedroom and looked out at the Texas stars. 5 years ago, she had been a pariah. A woman accused of murder, hunted by a mob with no home and no hope. She had been ready to die, certain that the world had no place for someone like her. And then Sam had appeared. She thought about all the ways their story could have ended differently. If Sam hadn't come to town that night, if he hadn't heard Martha's gossip, If he hadn't felt the pull of old guilt and older grief that made him step forward and claim her as his own. So many moments where everything could have gone wrong. So many chances for tragedy instead of triumph. But they had made it. Against all odds, they had made it. Sam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Second chances," Clara said softly. "How rare they are. How precious." "We didn't get a second chance." Sam rested his chin on her shoulder. "We got a first chance, a real one. Everything before was just waiting." Clara turned in his arms. "I love you, Sam Garrett." "I love you too, Clara Garrett." He smiled, that small quirk of his mouth that still made her heart skip. "Now come to bed. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "Why? What's happening tomorrow?" "Nothing special, just another day of our life together." Sam took her hand and led her toward the bed. "And I plan to enjoy every minute of it." Clara followed him, her heart full to bursting. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had watched over a mob carrying torches, a man making an impossible claim, and two damaged souls finding their way to each other against all odds. The past was done. The accusations were silenced. The enemies were defeated. All that remained was the future stretching out before them, like the endless Texas plains. And Clara May Bennett Garrett, who had once faced down a mob with nothing but her own courage, who had been called murderer and witch, and worse, who had lost everything and found it again in the arms of a man who believed in her when no one else would walk into that future without fear. Because she knew with absolute certainty that she was no longer alone. She was home. She was loved. And that was everything.